They were the most beautiful girls in their village, until their ugly best friend did the unthinkable thing to them, and they became very, very ugly, that even their mother did not recognize them. Not even the village men that once admire their beauty. Their ugly friends suddenly became beautiful. But one day something terrible happened. Two very beautiful twins, Tay and Kahind, lived in Idan village. The villagers called them three because their ugly best friend, Sailwa, was always with them, close like the tongue and the teeth. Men followed the twins like hungry chickens running after corn. But they ran away from Sailwa like chickens escaping a sharp knife. Many men came to ask for the twins' hands in marriage, bringing goats and gifts every day. But Sailwa's house? Even the village goats didn't know the way there. Jealousy made her feel bitter. Why is it always them? I must become beautiful, or I will make them ugly, just like me. She found a secret book that belonged to her witch-dead grandmother. She read the dangerous book from page to page. She couldn't find anything about how to become beautiful, but she found something. The story about the witches in the forest. An incantation to see and command the witch to do whatever you desired. When Sailwa saw this, she knew it could be the solution. She carried the book with her into the forest, and just as the book instructed, she read the incantation aloud. Suddenly, she saw what she had never seen before. A strange village, hidden deep in the forest, appeared before her eyes. This was where the witch lived. Some people there were walking without heads. Some had no eyes. She even saw legs walking without bodies. Then a very old witch came out and asked, "What have you come to do in our kingdom? What do you want?" Sailwa, stick shaking in her hand, could barely speak from the terror of what she was seeing. "Are you deaf?" the witch asked again. I want to be beautiful, just like the twins in our village," Sailwa finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The old witch's yellow eyes gleamed like dying embers in the darkness. "Ah!" the witch laughed, a sound like dry bones scraping against stone. "You will be beautiful, child. Oh yes, you will be more beautiful than you ever dreamed. But to be beautiful, the twins must follow you to our kingdom. Then we will collect their beauty and give it to you." Sailwa's heart pounded in her chest. She had heard whispers of such magic, but to witness it firsthand made her knees tremble. "They won't follow me," she replied quickly, doubt creeping into her voice. "Even if they do, they won't be able to see you like I do. Don't worry about that. Just tell me their mother's name, if you know it. I will make her sick in a way that no one else can heal her, except us. When death knocks at her door, desperation will drive them straight to us." The weight of what she was about to do pressed down on Sailwa's shoulders, but the burning desire to be beautiful, to be wanted, to be loved the way the twins were loved, consumed her conscience. With a voice that cracked under the pressure, she whispered, "Adunni. Their mother's name is Adunni." The witch's eyes flashed with satisfaction. She began to chant in an ancient tongue, her voice rising and falling like a deadly lullaby. "Orimi, Orimi, Keomayasimi. Adunni, daughter of Oguntala, let sickness find you where health once lived. Let your body become a prison that only we hold the key to unlock." The witch's voice crescendoed, and thunder rolled across the sky. Before Sailwa left, the witch pressed a small leather pouch into her trembling hands. The powder inside felt warm, almost alive. "Give this to the twins. Tell them to rub it on their faces, so they'll be able to see us when they come." Sailwa clutched the pouch and ran through the forest, branches tearing at her clothes, her heart racing with equal parts excitement and terror. She had set something in motion that could not be undone. But by the time she reached the village and arrived at the twins' house, chaos had already begun. The witch's magic worked faster than she had anticipated. Their mother, Adunni, was lying stiffly on the bed, her body contorted in an unnatural position. She couldn't turn right or left. Her limbs had become rigid as if carved from stone. Her mouth was shut tight, sealed by some invisible force. The twins were screaming, their voices raw with terror and helplessness. Tay was running from one herbalist to another, her feet bare and bleeding from the rough ground, shouting at the top of her lungs, "Please, someone help us. Our mother is dying." Tears streamed down her face as she pounded on doors, begging for help. Kahind knelt beside her mother's bed, her hands clasped in prayer, sobbing so hard her entire body shook. "Mama, please don't leave us. Please wake up. We need you." When Sailwa arrived at the house, she found the compound filled with concerned neighbors, herbalists, and family friends. She pushed through the crowd, putting on her most convincing performance. "What happened to Mama Adunni?" she asked with feigned shock, her eyes wide with what appeared to be genuine concern. "We don't know," replied Baba Sool, the village's most respected healer. Then on the fourth day, as the twins sat exhausted by their mother's bedside, their eyes red from crying, their hope nearly extinguished, Sailwa finally spoke. She approached them slowly, her face a mask of deep concern and hesitation. "Take Kahind," she said softly, placing her hand on Kahind's shoulder. "I've been thinking about your mother's condition, and I remembered something my late grandmother once told me before she passed." She paused dramatically, as if struggling with whether to continue. She said there are people deep in the forest, beyond where normal humans go, who possess ancient healing powers. They can heal people who are terribly sick like this, people whom no earthly medicine can save. When the twins heard this, their eyes lit up with desperate hope. They were so exhausted from grief and fear that they didn't think twice about the implications. They had tried everything else, consulted every healer in a day's journey, and their mother was slipping away before their eyes. They grabbed Sailwa's hands, their voices breaking with desperation. "Please, Sailwa, please take us there. We'll do anything. We must save our mother. She's all we have in this world. Without her, we are nothing." Sailwa pretended to consider carefully, furrowing her brow as if weighing great risks. "The journey is dangerous," she said slowly. "And these healers, they're not like us. But if you truly believe it's your only hope, then I will take you." The next day, just as dawn broke across the village, they began the journey into the forest. When they reached the entrance to the deep forest, where the ancient trees grew so thick their branches blocked out the sun, Sailwa brought out the small leather pouch the witch had given her. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured the shimmering powder into her palm. "Rub this on your face so you can see the people we're going to meet," she said to the twins, her voice carefully controlled to hide her nervousness. She watched as Tay and Kahind exchanged glances. The twins took the powder without hesitation. They were beyond questioning anything that might save their mother. With gentle, reverent movements, they rubbed the mystical substance onto their faces, and when they entered the forest, following Sailwa deeper into the shadows between the towering trees, they saw it. But what they saw was not what Sailwa had seen during her desperate midnight visit to the witch. Before them stretched a beautiful village that seemed to glow with golden light. The houses were magnificent, built from what appeared to be polished wood. Handsome men in flowing robes of deep blue and rich purple walked the paths with dignified grace, their faces kind and welcoming. Drums beat in perfect rhythm from somewhere in the village center. The people were dancing in the central square, their movements flowing like water. It looked like the most magnificent carnival the twins had ever imagined, a place where joy lived and sorrow was forgotten. But Sailwa saw the real thing, the true face of the witch's domain. Where the twins saw beauty, she saw darkness. Then the old witch emerged from what appeared to the twins as a magnificent palace with gleaming walls and golden doors, but which Sailwa knew was actually a hovel built from human bones and rotting wood. The witch's appearance to the twins was that of a regal queen, tall and graceful, wearing robes that seemed to be made of starlight. But Sailwa saw her true form, bent and ancient, her skin like old leather, her teeth black and broken. "Welcome, my dear children," the witch said, her voice somehow sounding melodious and kind to the twins' enchanted ears. "I already know what you came for. I can see the desperation in your hearts, the love you carry for your mother. Your mother is gravely sick. We have the power to heal her, to pull her back from the brink of eternal darkness. But you must do something for our kingdom first, something that will create the spiritual bond necessary to work such powerful healing magic." The witch gestured toward a building that appeared to the twins as a beautiful pavilion decorated, but which was in reality a crude hut made from mud and bones. "Go into the hut behind me," the witch continued. "You will see wedding gowns waiting for you, gowns that have been blessed by ancient magic and prepared specifically for this sacred ritual. Wear them with reverence and joy. You will participate in a fast wedding ceremony with 2 noble men from our kingdom, men who have been chosen by the spirits themselves to be your temporary husband. We will do whatever is necessary to save our mother," Tay said, her voice barely above a whisper but filled with fierce determination. "Our mother's life is worth any sacrifice," Kahind added, reaching out to squeeze her sister's hand for courage. They entered the hut together, supporting each other as they crossed the threshold into what they thought was a place of healing magic, but was actually a chamber of dark sorcery, designed to drain them of everything that made them beautiful and alive. Inside, they gasped at what they saw. 2 wedding gowns of impossible beauty lay waiting for them. Unknown to them, this was the sacrifice, the ritual carefully designed to collect their beauty, their youth, their very life force, and transfer it all to Sailwa. And that same day, in the strange village of witches, surrounded by what appeared to them as joyful celebration, but was actually a gathering of dark spirits hungry for young souls, They were married to two figures that appeared to them as handsome princes with kind eyes and gentle smiles, but were in reality ancient demons who had been waiting centuries for fresh victims to consume. When the ritual was complete and the dark magic had been set in motion, they walked back through the forest with Salwa, their steps lighter despite their exhaustion, their hearts filled with hope and anticipation. They believed they had just saved their mother's life through their selfless act of love and courage. When they returned to their village, they found their mother sitting up in bed, laughing and talking as if she had never been ill at all. The transformation was miraculous and complete. Adunni jumped up when she saw her daughters approaching, her eyes bright with joy and perfect health. She pulled them into her arms with strength they hadn't felt from her in weeks, shouting praise to all the gods she could name. "Thank you, Olajumer. Thank you, Sango. Thank you, Yamoja. Thank you, Oya." The twins cried with relief and happiness, holding their mother close, but they had no idea what was coming. The true horror of their sacrifice was yet to reveal itself, and the price they had paid was far greater than they could have ever imagined. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed through their window, the twins woke up and immediately screamed, piercing cries that could be heard throughout the village. Their mother rushed to their room, her heart racing with alarm. "What is it? What's wrong?" And what she saw when she entered their room made her drop to her knees as if struck by lightning. Her daughters were no longer beautiful. Their skin, once smooth and glowing like polished bronze, was now dry and blackened, like firewood left too long in the sun, transformed into something that barely resembled human beings. The twins ran through the village to Salwa's house, their faces covered with cloth to hide their appearance. But when she came out to greet them, the sight that met their eyes was like a knife to their hearts. Salwa was stunning. Her skin glowed with an inner radiance that seemed to light up the morning air. Her eyes sparkled like precious gems, and her smile was so beautiful it could stop traffic. She looked like a queen who had stepped down from heaven itself. "Oh my God!" Salwa exclaimed, putting her hands to her cheeks in what appeared to be genuine shock. "How did I become like this?" she asked, pretending to cry, wiping away imaginary tears with graceful fingers that seemed to catch the light. "I woke up this morning and looked in the mirror, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I've never been beautiful before, and now I don't understand what's happening to any of us." The twins stared at her in growing realization. The beauty that had been stolen from them was now hers. But they still held on to hope that it could be reversed. "We must go back to the witch," Tay said through her tears. "There has to be a way to undo this. We saved our mother, but at what cost?" They were determined to find answers, to reclaim what had been taken from them. The next day, they planned to return to the forest to confront the witch and demand that their beauty be restored. But that morning brought new horrors. Their bodies felt incredibly heavy, as if they were carrying invisible weights. The old sickness that had afflicted their mother had somehow entered them, but in a different, more sinister form. They could barely walk without becoming exhausted. That was when they finally told their mother everything. How they had gone into the forest to heal her, what they had encountered there, the wedding ceremony they had participated in, and their growing suspicion that Salwa was somehow involved in their transformation. They held nothing back, pouring out the entire story through their tears. Their mother's heart broke into 1,000 pieces as she listened. She cried bitterly, not just for what had happened to her daughters, but for the guilt she felt at being the unwitting cause of their sacrifice. With the twins by her side, supporting each other as they dragged their weak feet along the forest path, and Adunni helping to carry them when they stumbled, the four of them, including a reluctant Salwa who had no choice but to accompany them, entered the forest once more. When they got to the place where the witch's village had been, they were shocked to discover that everything had vanished. "Why can't we see them?" the twins asked, their voices filled with fear and desperation. They looked around frantically, seeing only ordinary trees and bushes where before there had been a magical kingdom. "I'm also surprised," Salwa said, continuing her performance even as her heart raced with panic. "Maybe they moved to another part of the forest? These spiritual people, they don't stay in one place for long." Their mother cried in frustration, her tears mixing anger and desperation in equal measure. After searching the area thoroughly and finding no trace of the supernatural village, they had no choice but to return home with no answers and no hope of reversing the curse that was slowly killing her daughters. The next day brought even worse news. The twins' condition had deteriorated dramatically overnight. They couldn't eat anything without immediately vomiting it back up. They couldn't talk except in hoarse whispers that barely carried across the room. All they could do was lie in their beds and groan in pain, their bodies racked with suffering that seemed to increase with each passing hour. Their mother, sobbing and shaking with fear and rage, made a desperate decision. She would return to the forest alone, without the burden of caring for her weakened daughters, and she would search every inch of that wilderness until she found someone who could help them. She walked deeper into the forest than she had ever gone before, calling out to anyone who might be listening, begging the spirits of the woods to show mercy on her children. She pushed through thorns that tore at her clothes and climbs over fallen logs that scraped her legs, driven by a mother's desperate love and the knowledge that time was running out. After hours of searching, when the sun was beginning to set and she was starting to fear she would be lost in the darkness, she finally saw a small hut tucked away in a grove of ancient trees. It was simple and humble, built from mud bricks and covered with a thatched roof, but it radiated a sense of peace. In front of the hut sat a very old woman, so ancient that her skin was like parchment and her hair was completely white. But her eyes were clear and kind, and there was something about her presence that immediately put a dunny at ease. This was clearly a witch, but not the same kind of witch who had cursed her daughters. This was a healer, a wise woman who used her knowledge to help rather than harm. "What are you looking for in this forest, woman?" the old woman asked, her voice dry like wind blowing through dry leaves, but gentle and concerned. "You seem troubled, and you've traveled far from your village. What brings you to my doorstep at this late hour?" "My children came to this forest seeking healing for me when I was gravely ill," a dunny explained, the words tumbling out of her in a rush. "I was healed, and for that I am grateful beyond measure. But their beauty was stolen from them in the process, and now they are dying slowly and painfully. I'm looking for the witch they met, the one who promised to heal me in exchange for their participation in some kind of ritual. I need to find her and make her reverse what she's done to my daughters." The old witch looked closely at her, studying her face in the fading light as if trying to remember something from long ago. "Are you a wheelie?" she asked suddenly, her voice taking on a tone of recognition. "Are you the daughter of Oguntala, the woman who lived by the river bend many years ago?" "Yes, I'm a wheelie," the twins' mother replied, surprised that this stranger knew her name and her family history. "But how do you know me? I don't remember meeting you before." The witch's weathered face softened, and something that might have been a smile touched her lips. "I remember you now," she said, nodding slowly. "Many years ago, when you were still a young woman, you helped me carry firewood when I could barely lift the bundles. My back was bent with age and pain, and I was struggling to gather enough wood to keep my fire burning through a cold night. You saw me by the side of the road, and without being asked, without expecting any reward, you stopped and helped me carry my burden all the way to my home. Because of that single act of kindness, that moment of compassion for a stranger in need, I will help you today." A wheelie's eyes filled with tears of relief and gratitude. "I saw what happened to your daughters," the witch continued, her voice heavy with sadness and anger. "I witnessed the entire terrible transaction. Your children's friend, the girl called Salwa, she betrayed them in the most cruel way possible. She brought them here to sacrifice them to dark magic, to trade their beauty and their life force for her own transformation. She wanted their beauty for herself, and she was willing to destroy them completely to get it." A wheelie's chest tightened with rage, and her hands clenched into fists. To know that someone her daughters had trusted, someone they had considered a friend, had orchestrated their destruction was almost more than she could bear. "I saw everything," the witch said again, her voice filled with righteous anger. "But there is hope. We can break the curse that binds your daughters, but it will require great care and precise action. The magic that was used against them is powerful and malevolent, but it has weaknesses that we can exploit." Then the witch leaned forward, her ancient eyes gleaming with purpose and determination. "But first," she said, "you must destroy the source of Salwa's power. There is a book, a grimoire of dark magic that she used to summon the evil spirits and arrange the curse. It's still in her house, hidden away where she thinks no one will find it. You must locate this book and destroy it completely. Burn it to ash and scatter the ashes to the four winds. Once you do this, she will never be able to call upon dark magic again, and the curse will begin to weaken." A wheelie nodded, her jaw set with determination. She would do whatever was necessary to save her daughters, no matter how dangerous it might be. She ran back to the village as fast as her legs could carry her, driven by hope and fury in equal measure. When she arrived home, she told her daughters everything the wise witch had revealed. They wept as she spoke, but their tears were now mixed with hope and anticipation rather than just despair. That same day, when Salwa had left her house to go to the market, a wheelie quietly slipped inside. She searched every corner of the small house methodically, looking through baskets and boxes, checking behind furniture, examining every possible hiding place. Finally, just when she was beginning to fear that the book might be hidden somewhere else entirely, she found it tucked under Salwa's sleeping mat, wrapped in a dark cloth that seemed to absorb light. The book itself was ancient and evil-looking, bound in what appeared to be human skin and written in symbols that hurt her eyes to look at directly. Just touching it made her feel sick and dizzy, as if the evil contained within its pages was trying to seep into her soul. Without delay, not wanting to spend another moment in contact with such darkness, she took the book outside to a safe distance from any buildings. She gathered dry wood and kindling, lit a match with trembling hands, and watched with grim satisfaction as the flames consumed the source of her daughter's torment. The book burned with unnatural colors, green and purple flames that hissed and crackled as if the fire were alive and angry. Strange smoke rose from the burning pages, forming shapes that looked almost like screaming faces before dissipating into the evening air. But Awili stood her ground, watching until every page had been reduced to ash, until nothing remained of the evil tome that had brought such suffering to her family. Then she carefully collected the ashes and, as the wise witch had instructed, scattered them to the four winds, making sure that no trace of the dark magic could ever be reassembled. The next day, she returned to the forest to meet with the wise witch and complete the ritual that would free her daughters from their curse. Together, the two women performed an ancient ceremony of cleansing and restoration. They burned herbs that filled the air with sweet, healing smoke. They chanted prayers in old languages that called upon benevolent spirits to undo the harm that had been done. But as they worked, Awili could feel something changing in the air around them, as if invisible chains were beginning to break and evil shadows were being driven away by growing light. And just like that, when the ceremony reached its climax and the last words of the ancient prayers were spoken, the curse broke. Miles away in the village, the twins suddenly sat up in their beds where they had been lying weak and dying just moments before. Their beauty returned instantly and completely. Their faces glowed again with health and vitality. Their skin regained its smooth bronze perfection. Their eyes sparkled with renewed light. They hugged their mother tightly when she returned from the forest, all three of them crying tears of pure joy and relief. But far away, in another part of the village, something dark and terrible was happening to the one who had caused all their suffering. The next morning, Salwa woke up screaming louder than anyone had ever heard a human being scream before. Her body was full of maggots, big, white, wriggling worms that were crawling out from under her skin, emerging from her arms and legs and face, as if her flesh were rotting from the inside out. She scratched and rolled on the floor of her hut, weeping in agony as the creatures poured from her body in an endless, nauseating stream. The beautiful appearance she had stolen was melting away, replaced by something far more hideous than the twins had ever looked even at their worst. She ran frantically to the place where she had kept the book of dark magic, hoping to find some spell that could save her from this nightmare. But the book was gone. She screamed louder, the sound echoing through the village and bringing people running from every direction. The villagers rushed to her house, drawn by the inhuman sounds of agony coming from within. They found her scratching at her flesh and sobbing, covered in maggots and speaking incoherently about magic and curses and betrayal. And then, in her pain and madness, she began to confess everything. The words poured out of her like poison being expelled from a wound. The villagers listened in growing horror and rage as the full scope of her evil became clear. "You brought shame and death upon yourself," they shouted, their voices filled with righteous anger. "You destroyed innocent girls to feed your own vanity. You are a monster who deserves no mercy." And in their fury, driven by rage at what she had done to the beloved twins who had been the pride of their community, they beat her to death. Her screams finally stopped as the sun set over the village, and justice was complete. If you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We offer a life-changing story, and if you like to become part of our journey, we will like you to subscribe for more stories like this. See you again in the next video.